We're exploring a major port today, more on that later. For now, we're going to tell you about today's video, which is about the behind the scenes of our life on the Villa Vie Odyssey. We're talking about the peak moments that surprised us and a few confessions about some of the bumps we had along the way.
Seriously, these are the oh my gosh, pinch me, is this real highs to the oh no, what next lows. This is pretty much a summary of all the events that have shaped our lives so far on the Villa Vie Odyssey.
We have to tell you, things feel a little bit different now. We'll explain a bit more in just a little while. We've been living aboard the Villa Vie Odyssey, a residential cruise ship, for quite some time now, and we've just circumnavigated around South America and completed stops to a number of ports in the United States. So we think it's time to look back.
Yeah, as we reflect on this journey, it's kind of fun to kind of see how it all started. And it literally all started when he saw a newspaper article, and we started joking about it really and thinking about it, going back and forth. But once we kind of got underneath this whole notion of traveling the world without all the hassles and the trains and the planes and the automobiles, it got really compelling, and it was really kind of too hard to resist.
Here's the thing about groundbreaking ideas. They tend to come with a lot of hurdles and a lot of skeptics as well. When we first dove into the world of residential cruising, we realized that it was filled more with a lot of failures than with a whole lot of successes. At the time, it was still kind of an unproven dream.
Yeah, of course, the world had been around for 20 years, but they had some issues in the beginning and were clearly the ones that were out there sailing and succeeding. But there was a lot of other ones that had not had that same success. So if you were thinking about investing in residential cruising, you kind of had to have a strong stomach. We feel like it's a lot better now in our experience as we've seen things improve and we've seen the momentum that the company has. So at this point, it's looking better and better in our opinion and experience.
Here's what we didn't tell you at the time. At the time, we had actually purchased cruises on 4 different itineraries. We had purchased cruises with Azamara and Regent, and we were going to the Baltics and to Africa and to some other places. And we had gotten some pretty good deals on those. And we really didn't want to give those up to go on the Odyssey. It felt like kind of a risk because we weren't going to get those deals again. But as you know, in the end, we did end up going on the Odyssey.
Yeah, and we lost some deposits on that too.
But we did.
We thought it was the right thing to do. The other thing that we didn't tell you was we actually looked at the world. The world was docked in a pier we were in one time. So we called them and talked to them about it. It definitely was not something that we thought we should do. If you think we spend a lot of money here, you would not believe what that was. So as we looked at that, we didn't think that was best for us in terms of what we could best afford and what we would really enjoy. So when Villa Vie came along, it seemed like a much better fit for us and a real opportunity.
Just when we thought we had our brains wrapped around this pretty ambitious idea, then the whole reality of a startup kind of hit us hard with the reality of what was happening in Belfast. Pretty quickly, there was this PR nightmare, and everybody, including us, was questioning everything associated with the project.
Yeah, this was tough, and it went on for a while. The Villa Vie Odyssey essentially found itself stuck in Belfast as they dealt with a rudder stock issue. And we learned a lot about rudder stocks during this time. It was no small task to fix. So what happened was they started having set and unmet expectations and delays and other things. So it was a really protracted issue, and it's something that really did cause a lot of negativity and a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt around the project.
As is natural in situations like this, there was a lot of frustration and anger from those early adopters who had invested so heavily in this dream. There was a lot of psychological and financial impact to those involved. And as humans do, different people handled it in different ways.
Sure. What we didn't tell you was that as much as we wanted to be there, we had actually had other trips planned that we went ahead and proceeded. So we were on other trips while all this went down. And while there was something to be said for being on the ground and experiencing all this, we were kind of happy that we were able to occupy our time with the other trips while all this got resolved.
Despite all of this uncertainty, we did decide to experience what was happening in Belfast firsthand, at least with a visit. We set up a tour of the Villa Vie Odyssey while it was in dry dock in Belfast. And it was pretty surreal because it was mostly still a construction zone, but we could see a glimmer of what was to come.
Yeah, it really was neat to get on. And in spite of all the mess, everything was torn up, let me tell you. But we really got through that tour a vision of what the Odyssey could be. And we really got excited about it and all the things, in spite of the challenges, that it could be in the near future.
But what we didn't tell you at the time was even this little tour came with its own share of drama, because when we arrived to do our tour, security wouldn't let us in.
Yeah.
Apparently, there was a bit of an administrative snafu, and our names didn't get put on the register, and we weren't allowed to go into the dry dock at first. So we almost never got a tour of the ship. It got resolved with a lot of patience, and we got to tour the ship, and it was amazing. But if we hadn't have taken the tour, I wonder if we would have still bought. I think we would have.
We probably would have.
After what felt like an eternity, the Villa Vie Odyssey finally launched from Belfast. It was a real accomplishment for the company and a testament to perseverance. But even with all of this great accomplishment, the press wasn't so kind, and they continued to kind of focus on the negativity.
Yeah, there was a lot of story here, and some of the press continued that negative narrative, some even calling it a cursed ship. So there was a whole lot going on, and a lot of folks did not see or focus on as much on the fact that they had completed this kind of monumental task of exiting Belfast and actually getting on the water.
Yeah, it was a real accomplishment. What we didn't tell you at the time, though, was that we had struggled on where exactly to get on the ship, because we wanted to be there pretty early, right after the launch. We had even bought tickets to Lisbon, which was an early port on its itinerary. But what we realized was this was a startup, and it was a new product. And the company made clear that it was a bit of a shakedown cruise, which means, the first little bit where they try to work out the kinks. So we realized that it would be best to just let it be, let it work through some of those early issues, and that we would join the ship later. The day finally came when we stepped aboard the Villa Vie Odyssey in St. Lucia. We were an absolute whirlwind of emotions, a lot of excitement, but a lot of nervousness as well.
Yeah. But once we stepped in our room, kind of all the apprehension went away and the excitement just grew. We could really start to envision the kind of material and real aspects of the life that we could have traveling the world on the Odyssey.
But what we didn't tell you at the time was you saw us step aboard our new cabin on deck 6. But we had actually bought a different cabin before even that. We had bought an interior cabin on deck 3. And we had that under contract for a couple of months or so. And then we decided to change our mind and buy instead a cabin on deck 6, which is what you saw in that early video. Our journey aboard began, and as days turned into weeks, we started to realize something about our cabin choice. As our confidence in the ship and in the company itself continued to grow, we started to think bigger. And when we say bigger, we mean literally bigger.
Yeah. As we spent time here, we began to realize that if we're really going to stay here and have a residential cruising experience, we probably needed more space. And as our ability to process the improvements that Villa Vie had made, coupled with our desire to stay long term, we thought to really thrive here, we wanted to have some more space.
But what we didn't tell you at the time was, while you saw us move directly into the new cabin, you didn't see us agonize over that choice. Although you know us pretty well by now, you can imagine we don't make choices very lightly. We toured several different cabins, going back and forth, before we finally decided to settle on this one.
Yeah. And the other thing that we didn't tell you was that it was about this time that we started, for the first time in our YouTube career, started getting hate mail. Not a lot of it, but there was a significant amount of it. We were doing Villa Vie content for the first time, of course, because we had just relatively recently joined after doing DC content for a while. And we started getting hate, people that were expressing concerns about Villa Vie and the ship and all that kind of thing, as well as saying that we were plants for Villa Vie, or that we were selling it and not telling people and that kind of stuff. So it's all pretty much gone away now, which we're really thankful for. But at the time, that was kind of stressful and we didn't really know what to do with it.
There's something truly liberating about being able to step outside of your home into a completely different place and a completely different culture. And that's exactly what we got the chance to do when we went out on our first excursion in Antigua.
Yeah, we loved Antigua. But what was even a bigger deal to us at the time was this was our initial foray into seeing what it was like to explore the world from our residential cruise ship. So we were really excited about Antigua. We had a great time there. And the thing that we really walked away with, though, was thinking about that notion of traveling that way and then projecting it into the future against all those future ports and all those future places that we would now be able to explore from the comfort of our second home.
Now, that video, that first port excursion video, didn't get a lot of views, and that's a shame. But we encourage you to go back and look at it, because if you look closely, you could really see that we were just giddy with excitement to be able to do this for the first time, to see the world in that way. As you know, since that first excursion, we have been to some incredible ports. In fact, as we film this video right now, we're in none other than San Francisco.
And we're having such a great time exploring the wharf. We've gone to all the attractions. We've even done a little bit of shopping. So now we'll share some of our adventures with you, and then we'll get back to the story. At this point, we've passed under many bridges here on the Odyssey and even before on other cruise ships, but few give you the feeling and the majesty of this one back here, and that's the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California.
We just sailed past Alcatraz Island, and now we're pulling up to our pier in San Francisco. And as you can see, the city looks beautiful. It's that iconic skyline. You can see the Ferris wheel, you can see the famous wharf. It's a beautiful city, and we're so lucky to be here.
Our journey has been marked by more than just new ports, but also by some really significant maritime moments and achievements. Among those being the crossing of the Panama Canal and also later the crossing of the equator.
Yeah, which were really neat to do. We had done them before, but what was neat about this, these weren't just kind of crossing lines on a map or doing kind of cool things on a cruise ship. They felt like significant events that we were participating in that were part of the Villa Vie Odyssey's kind of growing history. And it was neat to be a part of that.
What we wish you could have seen behind the scenes was that we felt like this was very important psychologically and sociologically for all of us as residents, because it really bonded everybody together with these significant memories. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that to come.
Yeah.
Of course, not every journey this grand goes exactly as planned, although there has been some really amazing highs along this journey. There's also been a few bumps along the way.
Yeah, and probably one of the largest one was the much anticipated trip to Antarctica, which was postponed due to logistics. A lot of folks were really looking forward to this, and this one stung. We had logistical issues. It had to be postponed to a different part of the journey in later times, but it was a real tough one for folks to deal with.
Yeah, it didn't affect us as much because we had been to Antarctica before, but we know that several other people were very disappointed about that change. And it just acted as a really stark reminder that with such a grand journey that's so complex, things are going to happen and you're going to have to approach it with some bit of flexibility.
Yeah, even when it's hard, because it is. What we didn't tell you was that the Villa Vie Odyssey has actually rebooked Antarctica, and it's now a part of a long journey, kind of like a world cruise that even non-residents can join if you want to out there. And it goes to Antarctica not once, but twice, just in case weather plays with us this time. We want to make sure we get there this time.
Leaving the ship, even for a short time, felt like a significant milestone for us. We had left the ship for a bit in order to attend a wedding, but it was the act of returning back to the ship that gave us a new appreciation for the ship as our home.
Yeah, we loved going home to DC. We loved the wedding, seeing our family and friends and all that kind of stuff. But there's something about being away and coming back to the ship that really gave us an appreciation for the fact that we have integrated into this community, into this way of kind of living as our second home. And it really felt great coming back to it.
What you didn't see behind the scenes was that we felt immediately inspired to really go into our cabin and try to make some real improvements in how we live and what's in our cabin so that it could feel more like home than ever before. Around this time, a major hurdle was the highly anticipated inspection by the U.S. Coast Guard. This was really important for Villa Vie Residences, the company, and for the Odyssey, because if they didn't pass that inspection, it could have led to some real significant delays.
And let me tell you, the nervousness of the residents, the crew, the leadership was palpable. This was a real important thing to get done. And of course, we're very happy to say that we passed with flying colors. And this only not proved the safety and the operational checks that we needed and passing to have us sailing into the U.S. But it really kind of shut down some of the folks and the naysayers that were saying they'll never get to America. This will never happen. This is something you can't fake. This happened. We're sailing very proudly in America.
And what you didn't see was around this time we got back on the ship and we met very many of you out there. What we didn't realize was while we were going around South America and we were making all of these videos, you were watching and you were making plans. You were making plans to come aboard this ship. And we got to meet so many of you. Many of you have bought, many of you came to visit and check it out and spend some time here. It was really great to see you guys.
It really was. This was really the first time that we interact with you, of course, all the time, but now we're really seeing multiple people over and over that have been part of this community. And we're so excited that we can interact with you here and that we have been maybe just a small part of what got you here. We're so happy to have you.
Hitting U.S. ports for the first time felt like a significant high point in Villa Vie Odyssey's story. It wasn't just about docking in familiar places in the United States. It was about finally getting a unique kind of attention for the company, for the ship for the first time, and starting a new chapter.
Absolutely. So we're in the U.S. now, and we've got all of these people that are hearing about the Odyssey, seeing the Odyssey in these ports, and of course the media attention and that kind of thing, along with all of this vibrant new community that's coming on board as residents. So it's really just fundamentally growing momentum, and it really feels like the Odyssey's kind of growing kind of her place on the world stage.
As we leave the U.S. ports for the vastness of Asia, we can't help but feel that a significant chapter of Villa Vie Odyssey's story has concluded.
And a new one is just getting started. We're so excited about the future, and we're so happy that we took the risk all those months ago on this lifestyle. Now, we want to ask you this. In the comments, let us know what has been your favorite part of our journey so far. What have you walked away with in terms of ideas or thoughts that you'd love to share? And as always, if you like what we do and you keep showing up, please like, please subscribe, and know that we'll keep bringing you great content, and we love having you here. See you soon.